Well, viewers, we have a big story from the adtech space where across nations, Google is the dominant player, and it is this dominance which is in question. The UK's principal competition regulator, which is the Competition and Markets Authority, has provisionally ruled that Google's dominance in the adtech sector is unfair on competitors. And as a result, the search giant may be fined up to 10% of its global annual turnover. As per the watchdog's press release, Google has been found to be using its market power to hinder competition when it comes to ads people see on their website. In fact, the watchdog adds that it's also important to have a level playing field in this regard, as advertising enables content creators to provide free or cheaper content to millions of users, and they should benefit from getting a fair deal while buying or selling ad space online. Now, the CMA has provisionally found that when placing digital ads on websites, the vast majority of publishers and advertisers use Google's ad tech services in order to bid and sell advertising space. Now, the CMA is concerned that Google is actively using its dominance in this sector to preference its own services. My colleague Siddharth is joining us on the broadcast with the details. Siddharth, Google being accused of disadvantaging its competitors and preventing them from competing on a level playing field.
Absolutely, Pratibha. So this has been a raging issue, not just in the United Kingdom, where the Competition and Markets Authority, which is the competition governance regulatory authority there, has pulled up Google. Its investigations continue against Google. Apart from this, of course, both the European Union as well as the United States, and the United States is the Department of Justice that has taken Google to court over pretty much the same issue, which is, of course, Google using its market share to its own advantage to such an extent that its own intermediaries, as far as selling ads online are concerned, are being preferred over other competitors. So it's being accused of undermining the level playing field in terms of the sale, the online sale of ads on the digital ad space. So the CMA has flagged this, the EU has flagged this, and of course the Department of Justice has also been looking into it. This is an ongoing investigation. There are provisions within the Competition Act in the United Kingdom that allow the regulator to fine firms as well as entities who are in fact found guilty of violating some of their provisions, including indulging in anti-competitive practices. And it remains to be seen how this investigation proceeds against Google. These are preliminary findings, of course, as you said.
Right. Siddharth, request you to stay with us. Let's also go across to Ankit to explain it all to our viewers. Ankit, the CMA has found that since at least 2015, Google has abused its dominant positions through the operation of both its buying tools and publisher and service in order to strengthen its own tool.
Well, that is exactly the nub of the matter, Pratibha, because Google has a wide presence in the ad tech space. It has tools across the spectrum of ad tech operations, and this is referred to as Google's ad tech stack. Now, in this ad tech stack, there are a number of tools. These, I can list some of them for you. They are ADX, that's AdX, that's an ad exchange. There is a DFP, there is AdSense, and there is something called DV360. Now, in a number of ways, these ad tech solutions, they are interconnected, and in the areas they operate, there are also other players who are allowed to compete and allowed to try and compete for the ad bidding process. Now, what Google is essentially accused of, and this is something that has been happening for a number of years, is whether or not its various tools give preferences to other tools. So is Google tool A giving a preference to Google tool B as against a competitor tool B? So that is essentially the issue at the moment. Now, after this adverse ruling that came in from the UK watchdog, Google has said in a response to TechCrunch that this is a wrongful interpretation. So it has essentially not agreed with the order that has come in. The provisional fine also is implied in this order, but we've seen how Google over the years on a number of matters, particularly arising from its search dominance, has been under the lens at various antitrust and anti-competition watchdogs and regulators. And so this is the latest, and this pertains, of course, to the ad tech space. And the regulator says that this anti-competition, one way it harms essentially the industry is that because of ads, content creators are allowed to and are able to provide free and subsidized content. They may not get a level playing field. They may not get the best return, and that will also impact the consumers as well, because then they may not get free content and they may not get subsidized content.
Okay, all right. In fact, we also spoke to cyber law expert Pawan Dugal, and he spoke about the concerns around it. Listen in.
In America, we have found an American judge holding against Google. We have found that now a complaint has been made against Google in India before the Competition Commission of India. And now the latest news comes of the action against Google by the UK regulator. All these are basically indicative of the fact that in these constantly changing digital times, the timing of monopolies is now gone. And therefore, all these monopolies in various digital sectors are now increasingly going to be scrutinized with the utmost care and caution by regulators so as to ensure that there is a level playing field in almost all sectors of the digital economy. Well, this is the way how trends are emerging. However, how things will actually evolve will be something that only time will be able to tell.
But we have cyber expert Tarun Vig joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Tarun. There have been a lot of concerns around Google. Now it's a UK watchdog that has said that Google abused its dominance to hurt its rivals. Tell us why this is a concern.
See, this is a major concern because if you look at the ecosystem, it's dominated by a few companies, right? If you look at Google, for that matter, the entire Android operating system and the ecosystem is dependent upon Google. Then subsequently, Google search engine is the most used search engine across the world. Then Google has got their browsers, Chrome and everything, which a lot of people use. Now, Google has, because of its dominance, it is in a position to basically not allow any other company to come up. Now, this has happened in the past also. It's not as if it's the first time it is happening. Netscape, it happened when Microsoft did it to Netscape. It happened earlier in the past. All these companies using their dominance to wipe off the new upcoming rivals who may have a better technology, who may have a better business idea, but they can never compete with the pockets that they have and plus the market coverage that they have. So this is a major concern. Google has had issues in the past as well. In 2020, there was a huge suit that Google Maps was tracking your location even without your permission. Even if you do not give permission, Google Maps was tracking your location, and Google admitted it, rectified it, but there was no comeback from their side as to what would they do with the data which they had already collected and why they had done something as brazenly illegal as that. So this is for any new upcoming companies, this is going to become a big bottleneck.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for joining us. So these concerns have been flagged off in the United States as well, in Europe as well. The CMA saying that since at least 2015, Google has abused its dominant position through the operation of both its buying tools as well as the publisher ad servers. So this is the claim that has been made, after which Google has also responded to the accusations via a statement, and they say that this is a flawed interpretation of the ad tech sector. Siddharth continues to stay live with us. Siddharth, the response from Google being that this is a flawed interpretation, but the charge against Google is very grave.
Absolutely. In fact, let me just take you through the findings of the CMA, the preliminary findings. We must add that caveat here. So the CMA said that the manner in which Google has actually gone about self-preferencing its own intermediary services when it comes to displaying ads online. So it says it's provided adtechs with exclusive or preferential access to advertisers that use Google Ads platform. It's manipulated advertiser bids so that they have a higher value when submitted into the adtech's auction. Adtex is the ad agency or the ad intermediary that's run by Google, than when submitted into the rival exchanges auctions. It also allows adtechs to bid first in auctions run by DFP, which is another Google entity, for online advertising space, effectively giving it a right of first refusal, with rivals potentially not having any chance to submit bids. Now, the Google, of course, has responded by saying that this amounts to a misinterpretation of the kind of services that it runs online, at least in the ad selling space. However, there are a slew of lawsuits now that Google has been at the receiving end of, starting, of course, with the United Kingdom. It will have to also, of course, reply in court as far as the Department of Justice is concerned in the United States, and a show cause notice also issued to it by the European Union as well.
Okay, all right. So Google was blocking competitors from freely offering their services. Let's go back to Ankit for that update. Ankit, so Google is being accused of being anti-competition and harming thousands of publishers and advertisers in the United Kingdom. And of course, this will also have an impact across the world.
Most definitely, and like one of our guests was also telling us, this is one domain, the ad tech sector is one domain where this is particularly concerning for Google, but there are others also, like it was mentioned in terms of web browsers, in terms of the Android operating system. Essentially, Google is in a position where if it chooses, it has such dominance and such clout that it can give a preference to one of its own services, and it has a number of these tools, services, platforms, call it what you will. It has a number of these across the entire chain and the entire gamut and spectrum of the ad tech process. And the watchdog here is essentially trying to ensure that other companies, other tools, other enterprises, they are also given a level playing field in which they can compete. Of course, Google can be among those, and it should, however, allow others also to have the same kind of chance that its own tool has. It cannot end-to-end have a control over the process to such an extent where only Google services are getting a preference. So that is where the essentially findings are at the moment, and it is being scrutinized across markets, and this is concerning for the platform also, and also for the various content creators that are attempting to give free content or cheap content or subsidized content, essentially for the benefit of all the millions and billions of consumers across the world.
Okay, all right. So the UK watchdog saying in as many words that Google's dominance in the ad tech sector is unfair on its competitors. Ankit, thank you for joining us. Thanking Siddharth as well for joining us with those